Came from it, just I noticed that.
I think it came from overlapping vacations.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Very possible.
And very full inboxes, right?
Yeah.
There was a land use staff meeting this afternoon, and the two things I heard from that meeting were that the septic system information, so far only sketches have been provided, and there needs to be septic system.
That's a biggie.
And also in front of the superintendent's house, which is located outside of the 200-foot buffer, there is room for a septic system in there with sandy soils, as well as behind the superintendent's house. Because of its proximity to a water resource that feeds into the Cambridge water supply, the Cambridge Water Department will be commenting. So that was one comment I heard. The other one was septic and concern with the force main and its location relative to the wetlands. And then there was a fair amount of discussion about the process and how the process was working, given the fact that the Conservation Commission has started the hearings with you folks, but they don't want to close until it goes to the ZBA, because then they can offer their comments to the ZBA. So there was some confusion about how that whole process worked.
We're going to be getting advice and assistance from an attorney from Copeland and Page, who's assisting us in sort of a dual representation situation, because obviously Copeland and Page is town council, but the attorney who's been assigned to assist us is working right now on trying to get really a strong list together of what we need to submit to the ZBA, and is also going to help us in terms of answering from, town council's point of view, the process. So Concom, I think, likes to keep their order of conditions open or not quite finalized until a ZBA decision is made.
Right,
I've heard
right.
that we've got to have the order of conditions before you can file, so obviously, you can't have both situations, so I'm sure somebody can figure out the answer, and we'll proceed accordingly.
There are comprehensive permit regulations from the ZBA. So
Yes, yeah.
And
Yep,
you've seen
they're
those.
under review, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
And but you mentioned earlier, they mentioned preliminary plans, correct?
Right. It says preliminary site development plan showing locations and outlines of building, proposed locations, general dimensions, materials for streets, driveways, parking areas, walks, paving area, proposed landscaping improvements.
Right, so in other words, the regulations aren't
Right.
so detailed that we have a clear answer just by reading them.
Right.
Right, which is
But
why
it
we're
does
getting some
specify,
advice.
it says a list of requested exceptions from local regulations, including codes, ordinances, bylaws, and
Yeah.
regulations. So, the other thing that I would suggest after the site meeting was to have an existing conditions plan for landscaping, even though it could be really rustic, but looking at the landscape plan, you don't realize that there are other trees on the site because they're not shown.
Well, adjacent houses too.
Yeah.
There's some that are quite close. I mean, this isn't the town's first experience with 40B projects. I mean, we've done, I can think of at least 2, 3 that we've gone through. The last one that I remember was the one just on the post road, Carol Cito's project. And the way it's worked, at least in my experience, is that the application doesn't have final documents, but that the ZBA receives the documents, the application is signed in, and then the ZBA goes to various boards and officials in town and seeks their input, which then get compiled and put into the ZBA decision with a set of conditions. I mean, that's the way it's worked. It worked out pretty well. I know it worked out, I think it worked out well on the Post Road, and I think it worked out well on South Avenue, where we also did one with Roy McDowell. So
Roy
McDowell. Those are the two I remember.
Pine Street Coffee.
Yeah, Pine Street Waffy, same deal.
And then Winter Gardens.
And Church Street as well.
Yeah, Church Street, well, that was one
I
unit,
thought
but
Church
yeah.
Street was part of the Highland.
It was part of the Highland Meadows agreement, but,
Yeah.
But the 40B was separate, was
Yeah.
standalone.
yeah, but, yeah, the process has always sort of worked the same way. I mean, the idea that you have to submit ironclad, rigid
Right.
documents with every detail worked out and no conditions in the decision, that one,
Yeah.
that's a departure. So, just throw that out there.
Okay.
All right.
Excellent, thank you, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Will you be doing the 255, 10?
That sounds like it.
Yeah.
But
It was probably going to get done.
I don't know what's going to happen because we don't have anything, so it's going to be.
The only thing that I could see remotely discussing is the driveways and the location of the driveways. Other than that, I think it should be continued because we haven't really.
We don't have any new information from them. Nothing. Can I ask you a quick question that has nothing to do with anything?
Yeah.
Do you know when Wendy Chaplin started on the zoning board of appeals?
Wendy?
Was it after 1993?
Oh, yeah,
That's what I thought.
absolutely.
Yeah.
More was 97 to 2000.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, thanks.
Well, it's going to be continued.
Definitely gonna
It's
continue.
what I would suggest, well, it's going to be continued anyhow. So what I would suggest, if you're not going to be here, you can call me and I can tell you when it's continued to.
Okay, no action to be taken.
No.
Just gonna be continued.
Yeah, I think I'll call the neighbors and.
Yeah.
Yeah, let them know.
And I can just send an email out to both of you as to when it's being continued and maybe you can pass it on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, that's fine.